I had a conversation with an agent yesterday afternoon, late afternoon, and one of their downline agents essentially had a serious event happen in their life, and they basically did hit the reset button. Age-wise, I think this individual is probably somewhere in their late 30s, if I had to guess. I don't really know. And that individual is taking the path of, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to live anymore
Ooh.
because they have essentially lost everything. And me and the upline were talking on the phone about this situation yesterday. And my immediate reaction is like, you have so much time and you know so much. Like I know this individual and like they've been through so like I know you know so much of how to do things. Like that knowledge, to have that knowledge, to be able to work off a foundation of that knowledge is so valuable. I mean, you think back to when, we first got started in this industry. I didn't know what actually held value and what didn't hold value. And you have all of these different perspectives and information sources and people coming to you trying to tell you things like, hey, you need to do this or don't do this. The one that I'm infamous for bringing up, that I'll definitely bring up again on today's episode, is I was told there's no money in Medicare from the second I stepped in the door with my license. And I believed it to be true for years. I was like, oh, selling Medicare, you're a sucker. There's no money in Medicare. And I'd almost like be smug about it. And I had no idea what was going on in Medicare. I was just regurgitating what I was told. So if I were to start over today, or if you are like that agent I mentioned and you hit a wall and you literally have to reset, which it happens. It happens to some of us, right? Being able to work off that foundation of knowledge that you have, you should be able to get to where you are today 100 times faster. If I were to go back to day one and I were to really start over, and let's say this was happening tomorrow, I definitely getting involved in Medicare. I would like to, I signed up to be a life agent pretty much out the gate, but I'd like to think that I would put together a plan where if I was starting with life, that I could execute on that path into Medicare and really become like a true agency. There's a big difference in operating as an individual agent and as an agency. And you can be an individual agent that operates as an agency, and that's really the pathway to help you grow into an agency. And I think that's a whole conversation probably right there in and of itself. But some of my early thoughts as I'm thinking about like starting over, what do you think about that? What are some of your first thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of my start, I think I was fortunate in how I came in without knowing
Yeah.
it at the time. So I didn't come in a bad situation. I didn't come in under like a bad upline or anything like that. I came in under my dad, you know. In this scenario, let's say that didn't happen. I would probably go the same direction that I went. I would go Medicare because I feel like for me it's been the foundational building block of the company. And I just feel like it's scalable. There's opportunity there. There's so much potential in it if you're good at it, and very few are.
What would you do? What would you do differently though?
Yeah, so here's what I would do differently. At the beginning, I've talked about this on the show before. The way I got business was really difficult. Cold calling, 5-year-old direct mail leads. Everything was just kind of fighting and clawing. And so my early years, it took me longer to grow versus what I was capable of, I think. So what I would do from the get-go is what I teach agents to do right now. What I tell agents to do, because when you come in, you either have time or money.
Yeah.
Usually you don't have money. Let's just assume I don't have money.
Assume you have no money.
Um,
Assume you have time.
Number one, I'm going to figure out a budget that I can spend every month, whatever it is. I don't care if it's $200, $300 a month and that's it. Whatever I can spend that I can commit to without not being able to pay my mortgage, right? Or feed my children or something like that. What can I spend every month? And if that's zero, then so be it. But if there is any number there, I'm going to commit to that. I'm going to allocate to that. And it's going to be like a bill. I have to spend it every month, like paying your utilities or something.
Yes. Yep.
And I'm going to spend that on marketing and leads. I don't think, let's say my budget's $200 a month. That's not enough, I feel like, to run a Facebook ad campaign and really get anywhere. So I'm going to buy leads.
Yep.
Now that's not enough leads to keep me busy. So I'm going to get out into the community. I'm going to do the grassroots thing because
I'm going to do the grassroots thing, baby.
because what else? Here's my question to people. What else can you do if you don't have any money? You either have time or money to give. So in this scenario, I have more time to give. So I'm going to get out. I'm going to build referral partnerships. I'm going to try to do Medicare 101s. I'm going to try to get in on 55 and up communities, things that I did in the past that worked. I'm going to try to do that for 6 months. At that point, I have more clientele coming in, more business coming in. I'm filling the pipeline. I have more revenue coming in. And then I'm going to scale the grassroots efforts back. And I'm going to scale my lead flow and spending on leads and running ads and marketing up because I have less time to give, more money to give. So I'm going to balance that out. And then the goal would be to get to a point where I'm doing it all based off of spending money and generating marketing and everything like that, or maybe like 5% in the community. Like for us, we still do some things in the community, but it's so much less than it ever was before. It's such a small percent of what we do.
Right.
A vast majority of what we do is we spend money on leads and marketing efforts and things like that. So that's what I would do differently, to where in my original story, I didn't really buy leads much here and there, but I didn't really buy leads much or spend money on my business for many years. I didn't hire anybody until I was going into basically my 5th, 6th year. I would have hired somebody really a lot faster. I would have started staffing up to help me. I cold called for the first 3-4 years. I wouldn't have done that. I would have been on a much quicker trajectory to the point that we're at right now.
So let me ask you something, because my question is exactly what you're about to say, is like how quickly. So, we talked on the show publicly, we're doing between 7 and 8 figures. Our goal is to get to 8 figures here as quickly as we can, and we're on that road right now. So obviously, where we're at. I know where we're at. If you were to start over tomorrow, knowing everything that you know and how you've gotten this far, how quickly could you get back to here?
I think,
if you had to guess. Obviously, this is a guess, but I have an idea in my head, but I'm curious what yours is.
I'm optimistic, but I'm not so optimistic that I'm going to say I could do it in 1 or 2 years. I think it would probably realistically be around like 5 years.
I was more optimistic than I was guessing. I would like to think I could get back here in 3 years. What's taken 10, I'd like to think I could do it in 3, just by knowing what works and doesn't work and all of those things over a 10-year span. I'd like to think I could kind of shortcut and do it again in 3 years or less.
Here's why I say 5, and I love that 3-year projection. The first number that came into my head, but I didn't say it, was between 3 and 5 years. But then when I processed it, I was like 3 years might be aggressive. That first year in particular, when you have nothing, is going to be the slowest year, right?
That's a big deal. That's the big year, in my opinion,
because
coming off that year.
To get there in 3 years, it takes a massive amount of spending and investment that you just don't have right away. So you're kind of building a foundation from almost nothing. That's why I hesitated to say shorter than 5. But that being said, it's certainly possible, but it would probably involve tremendous amount of risk, huge amount of risk. It's less risky because you know what you're doing. But like I'm talking about like taking loans out and stuff like that.
Leveraging up.
And like we take loans out to do things like buy books of businesses and things like that now, but we have the money to pay it back. When you're starting from ground zero, that's so terrifying. Just like thinking about it in my mind, like trying to visualize putting myself in there. Not saying I wouldn't do it, but I probably would have to chew on it, because it's one of those things where you have to. I believe that there'd be a return that is delivered, but would it be fast enough, right?
Yeah.
Would it be fast enough?
Does this conversation make you want to try to start over?
No.
It doesn't. See,
No.
it makes me want to trade. Like we talked about doing like the undercover billionaire thing, where like
Yeah.
we get dropped off in a city, we have nothing but paper apps or whatever, right?
See, that type of thing where it's like a temporary thing, it's like a contest. I'm all
Yeah,
right with that. But, the thought of starting over for real, like
terrifying,
legitimately, that,
terrifying you.
that's fairly frightening. And also like devastating, right? Because it's like an entire life's work gone.